Hi, everyone. I'm Matt Anderson, one of your Unica account managers. And with me today, I have Mark Reiner, who's the Unica CTO, and Sumitra Chakar, who's a Unica product manager who's actually focused on the Journey orchestration application. And that's what we wanted to talk with you about today. We want to do an actual live demonstration of our Journey orchestration capability. So in this video, we're going to do a deeper dive. There are a number of videos out there that we published. This is going to be more of a deeper dive into Journey. We'll focus on the building blocks for creating journeys, how to add audiences from Unica Campaign, how to send records to external systems like an ESP or another application, and then how to update customer status as they move along throughout the journeys, and for routing them through the journeys. So let's start out with, first of all, a use case from one of our global hospitality clients. And with that, I'm going to go into the demonstration. So right now, you're looking at a journey in the Journey application here. And this particular one is for an actual client of ours that wanted a journey for customers who are reaching a new loyalty tier. So many of you have loyalty programs or membership programs with different tiers. So think about something along those lines. So basically the entry trigger here is whenever that state change is detected in the database and campaign is connected to the database, and basically would pull records that have crossed that threshold into a new tier. So this one has 3 stages. In the first stage, we send out a welcome email with the benefits of that new tier. In the second stage, we get them to redeem an award night. And then in the third stage, we're going to email them about the benefits that they're going to receive during their stay. And then we're going to send them to a new journey at the end for a completely separate one around the experience for their upcoming stay. So in each of these stages, we're going to contact them, we're going to track responses, and we're going to send reminders if necessary. And we're going to go into all of these details later on. So having said that, let's go into the first step for creating our journey. The first thing we need to do is basically define the data fields that we need for contacting customers, personalizing messages, and then routing them through the journey paths. So let's go back to the software. And so this is actually the data definition that we used or created beforehand. Now, one thing that's great about Journey that I wanted to highlight up front is that it minimizes data movement. So you basically upload all of the customer attributes that you need from the beginning when you upload records from Campaign. And then you can pass these attributes with the records to contact systems to personalize these messages. So these are all the data fields that we're using in our journey. Some are for identification, some are for personalization, for example, first name or last name, maybe, your membership ID. And then, others will be used then for status updates, for example, maybe responses and so on and so forth. To add one, you just simply click on this field, and then you can name, new field, select your data type, and then enter the number of characters that you'd want. So anything maybe here, Sumitra, that you might want to add about data definitions?
No, I think just one more thing, that we have a field which is called as required. So Journey will do some kind of basic validation. If you're marked some field as required, which is absolutely necessary, it will validate at the beginning. So that required column is also important.
Perfect.
So I would also add my 2 cents to this topic, that the record for Journey needs to be designed so that it could support all the stages in the journey. And the record is the place that, should have placeholders that would reflect customers' progression from one stage of the journey from one milestone to the next one. And this record is created at the start of the journey, but it also will get updated as the journey progresses and customer behaviors and responses flow back into the journey.
Right, and that's why we had these kind of generic touch flags for each stage of the journey, right?
Exactly.
Right, excellent, good point. Okay, let me cancel out of that, and let's go to the next step. So our next step then is going to be to add the actual entry sources. So we're going to be focused on campaign in this video, but another benefit of Journey is that you can add multiple entry sources used to add customers into the journeys, as well as to update their statuses throughout the journeys. So let me go back into the software. This is where we click to go on to journeys. And here's the one that we created, but let me just quickly show how we would create a new entry source. So basically you click on that button, and then why don't I actually have Mark explain this one? Mark, do you want to talk about the different, and then feel free to chime in, Sumitra, talk about the different entry sources that we could add from potentially different systems, and not just in the beginning stage, but throughout the journey.
Absolutely. And let me start by comparison Journey to Unica Campaign. Unica Campaign is a module that connects to a variety of data sources, but all those data sources are basically either relational databases of different types or files, flat files or delimited files. Journey dramatically expands and modernizes that set of data sources that could contribute data to marketing logic. Data could be streamed through Kafka queues. Data could be posted through Journey REST APIs. Data could come directly from campaign or through interact triggered messages, or by events generated by Unica Discover. Data can be also dropped into Journey by the user in CSV or TSV or JSON format. So Journey basically adds a number of modern and popular data formats and data sources to overall Unica capability to get data from wherever customer data reside and leverage the data in marketing logic.
Awesome. Anything you want to add, Sumitra?
Yeah, just to add to that Journey also allows you to change these entry sources. So let's say your journey remains the same, so your customer experience is still the same, and you're just changing the technology which is really sending the data. So you don't have to worry about changing a lot of stuff. Just change the entry source, and your journey will still be up and running.
Great point. Great point. So let's go back to our demo journey here, and the next section is going to be creating the actual journey, and then we're going to link that data definition that we created as well as the entry source. So let's go back to the software. Okay, so basically to create a new journey, you're going to click here. And the first thing you'll do is add entry sources and then the data definition. And I'm going to do this for a new one, and then I'm going to go into a journey that we actually created to show some other features about how you could actually add milestones or stages and different data sources to each of those stages. So first of all, I'm going to click on entry source, and then I can select the one that I want to use. So in this case, we're going to use a campaign flowchart that's going to upload an audience. And then I would select the data definition that I created. So here's the data definition then with all of the different fields that I wanted to use. So what I want to do now actually is go into the actual journey itself and show how I can set up different stages. So, and each of these stages can have different entry sources. So remember in our journey, we had 3 different stages. We call them milestones. And then basically, if I wanted to add these, I could just go in here, click add, and then I could create a new stage, add. And then once I've defined all the stages I want to use, I click next. And then here, I can add different entry sources for each of these stages. Now, in this case, I'm just using campaign. But, for example, if we're going to be connecting to an external system for contacting customers, I could also select on that and then select, where we have that particular entry source from our folder system. And this gets into the point that maybe you might want to cover this part, Mark, but, where we're going to be looking for that, flag that we defined in a data, in a data definition that we'll be looking for particular responses that we can use then to route them to the next stage of the journey, or to send them a reminder. Anything that you want to add there, Mark?
I think milestones is very important from sort of business tracking perspective, that allows business users to identify those stages or steps that indicate, or behaviors that indicate, customers or visitors' progress to the next stage of the journey, be it loyalty journey or sales purchasing journey, or, purchase journey, or any other type of journey. So I think this is where, data processing technology meets business requirements and business, tracking of business progress.
Cool. Yeah, that's a great point. Anything that you want to add, Sumitra?
Yeah, as Mark rightly said, that this is where you really think about the customer and what are the different milestones that they have in the journey. So instead of just letting people flow in the journey and not looking into whether or not they are completing the journey, these can be different spots where you can handhold customer and have more engagement with them. Overall, this feature will enhance the customer engagement.
Cool. Awesome. Good point. So the next thing we want to talk about is that, with multiple entry sources, potentially for the journeys that you might be running, and with multiple stages, you're going to have multiple, duplicate customer records. So next I'm going to have Sumitra actually explain how our system would deal with duplicate records. So let me go back into the journey. Okay, so now and we want to go into settings, correct?
Right. So first of all, how journeys are different than traditional campaign or batch systems is journeys are always on, and people are flowing into journeys depending on some events. So something like if you're abandoning the cart, or if you're eligible for the next year, or if you're searching or showing some patterns onto the website, and so on. So it might happen that the same customer once enters the journey, and since journey is always on, they can keep on running for months and quarters. So you might have people running into the same journey again and again. But how do I really find that this is the person who has already been part of this journey, and I don't want them to re-enter? So that is where we have this deduplication setting, This is very important. So it depends on your business case where you want to identify or like how you want to identify a unique record. So in this reservation thing, let's say I have email ID or your membership ID. That's definitely unique, but I can have a different number of maybe reservations. So maybe in this journey, I want to consider membership ID along with my reservation dates and email as my unique key. Now, by some means, if this data is getting repeated, or even if you're trying to forcefully insert the same data again, so Journey is not going to add those as a new records. It is going to either update it as update that existing record, or it is going to ignore that record altogether because the customer has entered the journey once. So it will it will stop Journey from sending like duplicate messages for the same kind of campaign or journey.
Excellent. Anything that you want to add, Mark?
No, this is Sumitra got it covered. I think this is the key. Updating records is the key capability to maintain the status of the journey as visitors or customers progress through different stages and milestones.
Great. Okay, so the next thing we want to cover briefly is, now that you have the foundation with the data definitions and the entry sources, we know how to handle, we've created the journey itself, we've decided how we're going to handle duplicate records. Now we can actually start designing the journey itself. So let's go back into the software. So right now I'm actually, one thing we haven't highlighted yet too is that we have different modes of the journey. So right now I'm actually in a draft mode. Once I'm done, we can put this into a publish mode, and this is when you can start to see customers actually flowing into the system and being routed down different paths one by one. But when I'm designing the journey here, it's very simple drag and drop UI. So basically I can take elements from, over here. So here you have on the top part, various touch points that we're not going to cover in this particular video. You're going to have controls that basically can delay and route customers throughout the journey and put them down different paths. And then other boxes here that will, for example, this REST API that will allow you to export records to external systems or even publish them to different journeys. So I'm just going to highlight some of these controls in this particular video. We have other videos that get into some of these in a little bit more detail. So first of all, let's click on this delay. So basically I can just drag and drop these things onto the palette like that. In this case, I'm going to just go into the one that I created here. So basically what this does is it will pause the journey. I can do that based on a duration of days, hours, or minutes. I could wait until a specific date, or I could even have a certain date or time in the data definition that I could use. Anything you wanted to add, maybe specific to this data definition field, Sumitra, as far as the delay?
Yeah. So, with the first option that we have, which is a duration, so it will always add a relative delay into the journey. So let's say if I'm starting my journey today and I say that have a delay for 1 day. So for me, it is going to start a delay for 1 day with the first option. The second option is basically for scenarios where you have a common date, something like imagine you have a webinar which is going to be common date for all the people, and you have some kind of journey around that, or you have some kind of event and you have to do some kind of journey which will remind people or update people, send surveys around a particular event. So second option will allow you to do those kind of events which are common for all the records which are flowing into the journey. Now, third option is interesting, where let's say if you have a journey for, let's say, hotel reservation, or it can be for expecting moms, or that kind of thing, where the date that every record will have is different, but I still want a single journey because my customer experience is still the same. So what I want to do as part of this journey is like one day prior to your reservation, I want to send you the reminder. On your check-in time, I want to send you, some of the guidelines. When you are checking out, I want to, send you a mail or maybe send a feedback survey or something like that. So I can design that kind of journey, which is essentially common for everybody, but everybody has reserved onto the different dates. So it becomes very simple from UI and in terms of understanding that it doesn't look complicated, but in the background, it is doing a lot of different things. So it is pretty much a journey of individual, and the user experience is still the same.
Great. And another one I wanted to highlight here is the decision, which basically this decision control basically will create a split where you have a yes path or a no path. And then basically, why don't you actually just go ahead and explain this, Sumitra?
Yeah.
Like just point and click on.
Yeah, so we have two kind of splits where one is like engagement split. We'll talk about that later, and one is more about decision split. So let's say if you have some kind of profile attributes where you want to send, A versus B or maybe channel preference, you can easily use this decision split and say that if your preferred channel is email, I'm going to send you email. Otherwise, I'm going to send you maybe SMS. So that kind of check can be easily added with the decision split, but this can also be used for something like an event which is going to come to journey little later. So if I have abandoned the cart and I'm sending you communication that reminder mails and so on, but meanwhile, let's say if you are completing the payment, so I want to be smart enough to get that event and respond. So before sending next communication, I just want to make sure you have not completed your payment. So those kind of events which are fed to journey by external systems, that can be checked into decision split.
Awesome. Another one I wanted to highlight, we can also publish audiences to other journeys. They could even be, using other connectors. We can publish them to other contact systems such as ad tech as well. Again, that's not going to be covered in this particular video. The next thing I wanted to cover here is how then, once you've uploaded customers into this journey that we've designed, Journey starts to route them one by one down the paths based on, their, status updates or behavior. And then they can be exported to an external contact system or application. So what I wanted to have Sumitra focus on next is basically our Journey REST API, and basically each of these blue touch points that you see here are basically that API call. So I'm going to just open up one and have Sumitra explain this in a little bit more detail.
Right. So as Matt was explaining, we have several ways to get the data out of Journey as well, or do the external callouts. And this one is via REST API. So here you have to define what is your REST endpoint and have details about that endpoint, like which is the method you're going to use. So do you want to do a get or a post or a put? Similarly, for every endpoint, you'll have some kind of authentication mechanism. So in the drop down, we have different authentication mechanisms that we are supporting. So right now the API key is configured there, but you can just go to OAuth, or maybe your endpoint is doesn't have any authentication mechanism at all, or it is basic, and so on. So depending on your authentication mechanism, there will be different values, like a client secret, and everything will be configured on this screen. Next is now, since we have used post method, it will also allow you to feed the payload, and in this payload you can have different journey attributes. So you can actually send those attributes as a part of payload. And your payload can be either JSON or XML, depending on how your endpoint is designed. The third one is like you're depending on your endpoint, you might have some of the response fields that you are interested in. Again, reading them into journey and maybe using them some point later in the journey. So if you have something like that, so this is optional screen, but if you are expected to read the responses or some attribute of your responses, you can configure that and just assign to journey fields. And once the call is successful, you'll have those journey fields updated by this REST touch point.
Anything that you want to add to this at all, Mark?
So this is a great generic mechanism to post that Journey can use to both post data to third-party services and get status updates, at a later point in time to see what was the results of, activities performed by those services. I find this is a great new feature, and I expect it will be very useful in the implementations.
Right, and we have, as I mentioned, other connectors that are pre-built that can connect to different email engines or SMS engines or even different CRM applications or ad tech and whatnot. This is one that we just wanted to highlight because we do have some customers that have maybe some homegrown or systems that they've built or other more customized applications that they wanted to be able to pass records and attributes to from Journey. So we just wanted to highlight that in this particular video. So then we come to the last point, which is basically importing an audience from Campaign. So let's go. Hopefully this didn't time out on me while we were showing everything else. So and I'm going to cover this one with Mark. So, basically this is the flow chart that you're familiar with. This is also, the latest, for those of you who are on an older version of Campaign, this is actually version 12.1.1. And the difference here is that we've added a box basically to create a seamless integration between Campaign and Journey. So everything that you see here is all automated behind the scenes. And so essentially timed out, so give me a minute here. All right, so I have my campaign here. We'll go straight to that flow chart here. And again, let's open that process box. So Mark, why don't I have you walk through this, if you don't mind, and talk about how we can do this for this particular journey and also how, at the end, how we can actually connect to multiple journeys to upload audiences.
So the process is very easy and straightforward. Campaign does the work of selecting and preparing a target audience, selecting, compiling, or computing all the data elements that need to be provided to Journey, perhaps its initial or updated state of the journey, contact information, perhaps its computed contact date using the features that Sumitra described earlier, where we can use data-driven dates to control and orchestrate Journey. And those days could represent, for example, optimal weekday or optimal send time for a message. So once Campaign does that, the Journey box allows us to select data definition. This will give us export fields that data definition expects, and then to map columns from Campaign, tables and files to expected data fields in Journey. We don't have to fill all of them, only the ones that Campaign has, but we do need to provide the required fields, which will drive contacts. It could be email or phone number or both, but those are the required fields. Everything else could come from a table or could be computed in Campaign on the fly. So as I mentioned, we would need to select data definition and we would need to select data entry source, which basically sends this record to all journeys that are configured to work with this data definition and listen on data coming with our selected entry source. With that, when the process runs, data will be collected and sent down the Kafka stream to Journey to process. If we take a step back, we kind of can take a look at basically a spectrum of communication capabilities that Unica Suite provides. And Campaign in that spectrum manages, batch blasts that happen on the time and day of, selected by the marketer. Then there is Interact that provides supports interactive communication and personalization with people who are actively navigating and interacting with a channel like website, mobile app, kiosk, or call center. And then Journey combines the two and makes personalized near real-time communications that could be started from a batch blast from Campaign, or they could be triggered by incompleted activity within interactive channel, such as abandoned shopping cart. But then those communications would be orchestrated and progressed based on logic in Journey. I think those kind of three different tools that, when come together, provide, the complete spectrum of communications that marketers need. Matt?
Yeah, no, I think that's these are all great points. Anything that you want to add to that, Sumitra?
No, that's perfect.
Awesome. So a lot of you today that are listening to this video already have Campaign. So you can see that there's a seamless integration between Campaign and our new Journey orchestration application. What we've tried to cover today is, the building blocks of, how you would create a journey from scratch, starting with, the data fields that you need to use, the different entry sources. While we only showed Campaign, you can add multiple ones. That could also include, the external system that the REST API is connected to. We showed how you can handle duplicate records, in a situation where you have multiple entry sources and multiple stages. We showed how simple it is to design a customer journey, and then how to export it to an external system that's not using one of our pre-built connectors. And then lastly, we showed now the seamless integration between Campaign and Journey. So this is a great solution for really any customer. It could be a small customer that's really trying to, with a small staff that's trying to automate as much as possible and do more with less resources, but also for our large clients that want to do more triggered real-time marketing going forward. And when you think about it from a IT perspective, all this orchestration is done automatically, and we minimize the data movement. So thank you very much, Mark and Sumitra, for joining me today, and I hope everyone finds this video useful. We'll talk soon.